These are the tests for Cabinet Member Decision Day.
Right. Please can I welcome everyone to this meeting of Cabinet Member for Climate Emergency Decision Day, taking place from the Walton Suite, Winchester Guildhall. The time is 9:30 a.m. My name is Councillor Kelsey Lerney, Chairperson and Cabinet Member for Climate Emergency. This meeting is being live streamed and recorded to the Council's YouTube channel. Subtitles are available and advice on how to turn this on is set out on our website. If you are joining us online, please turn your camera and microphone off until your item, and can everyone please ensure mobile phones are on silent. In the unlikely event that it is necessary to evacuate the building, the fire alarm will sound. Please follow all the instructions given to you by our team. Turning to the agenda, item 1 is disclosure of interests. Does anyone in the room have any disclosures of interest to make? No, everyone is indicating not. So moving on to item 2, public participation. We have no members of the public who've asked to speak today. Visiting councillors representation, I have Councillor Neil Bolton, who has asked to speak and is present today. So I'll ask you to speak at the appropriate time, Councillor Bolton. So moving on to the business item on the agenda today, Winchester residents off-street parking season tickets and evening parking charge rate. With me in the room to help on this, I have Andy Hickman, Head of Programme Place, and Campbell Williams, the Service Lead for Environmental Services. Would one of you like to make a brief presentation on the paper?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Lerney. Happy to introduce this. So this paper gives some updates and recommendations on the residents off-street parking in terms of decisions made previously about evening charges and about some of the issues related to the County Council's takeover of the on-street parking system from October. So there are a number of recommendations in here which support the Winchester Parking and Access Strategy, helping to deliver the carbon neutrality plan and the Winchester movement strategy, and also to ensure fairness and equity for visitors, residents and businesses in Winchester. So a number of recommendations. Firstly, to recommend that all of our parking tariffs are reviewed on a regular annual basis to make sure they support the objectives of the parking and access strategy. Secondly, that from July 23, the evening charge in the central car parks, which was agreed previously, is set at a rate which is equivalent to the 2-hour daily parking rate. So that then applies between 7 p.m. and 8 p.m, but only in the central car parks. That from October 2023, we introduce an off-peak season ticket in the Park and Walk car parks, which allows you to park early evenings, early mornings, Saturdays and Sundays. That we continue with the existing concessions for resident permit holders until those expire. And those be reviewed in the light of the County Council's decisions on their operation of the on-street scheme. And finally, that we continue to work with the County Council to make sure that we offer a coherent set of parking tariffs and concessions which supports the needs of residents, people who work in the city and visitors, with transitional arrangements as appropriate in the interim. So there's some more detail contained in the report. I think that hopefully summarises it. And happy to discuss or open for discussion.
Very busy near this morning, isn't it? Good morning, and thank you for allowing me to speak this morning. I suppose it is of no surprise that as the first climate emergency decision day after the elections, the Liberal Democrat administration has seen fit to introduce increased parking charges and the introduction of a new overnight parking fee for central car parks in Winchester. This represents another inflationary cost to hit customers of Winchester's nighttime economy. When restaurants and bars in the city have been crying out for support and help, the administration looks the other way and introduces evening parking charges. In the supporting documentation, there appears to be no proper assessment of the impact of introducing these charges. In particular, the numbers of cars parked currently past 7 p.m. in the central car parks, and an attempt to understand the impact of the charges on these numbers, what expected revenue would be generated for the council, and most importantly of all, in what specific way would this contribute to achieving net zero and improving air quality. At least some attempt to understand the impact this would have on the nighttime economy would have demonstrated some concern for the city's businesses rather than this reckless disregard dressed up as a high pursuit of net zero. This document appears to imply that when HCC take back control of on-street parking, those permits will no longer be accepted in the park and walk car parks. I sincerely hope that a better assessment of the impact of such a change on residents who struggle to park near their properties in the city will be undertaken before that decision is made. Given that the primary policy of the administration is for the council to achieve net zero for all its assets by next year, are we to understand that there will be more substantive policy decisions to come rather than more parking charges? Are we in for more big reveals, big reversals, or big excuses, followed by the big blame game? Thank you.
The decision around parking charges was made many months ago, not no, while you were a member of the council, so I don't think you were paying enough attention, Councillor Bolton. Mr. Williams, do you want to can we refer to some of the consultation we've done with the business community about this, in terms of, you know, their thoughts about it?
Yes, we did. I want to say we, Councillor Learning, myself and Mr. Hickman, did go to talk to the board of the Winchester Business Improvement District a number of months ago to talk them through this and what we're proposing. I think they understood that, you know, the objectives of what we were trying to do, and that's one of the reasons why we've also introduced alongside the evening charges, which apply only in central Winchester. So the vast majority of our parking doesn't have these charges in the evening. So if you park in Chesil Street, for example, those charges don't occur, and they remain free on a Sunday as well. So I think that's why when we talked to them, they didn't raise any particular objections to this at the time. And we've introduced and are seeking to introduce the off-peak parking ticket in the park and walk car parks as well, which introduces an additional discounted set of parking on Saturdays and Sundays for people like visitors or staff who work in the restaurants. So hopefully
Sorry, Cameron, your mic's just gone.
So hopefully the points you made are covered. One of the issues is we don't know yet what the county council is going to propose with its on-street parking arrangements. We are aware that a number of residents rely on those for parking locally, and when they aren't able to park locally, they can park in a number of car parks at the moment. And one of the things that's clear from this and in our recommendations is that we continue working with the county council to support residents as we need to, but there remains a cost for residents parking in car parks, which we need to think about how we manage that. But we are committed to working with the county council to make sure that those arrangements are transitioned as appropriately as they can be.
Since the paper was published, have we had any more clarity about the county council's proposals?
No, we haven't. They've indicated that they're not going to change the scheme immediately, but they're going to see how it goes. And I think that's the other thing I'd like to add to what Mr. Williams said, really, that we will monitor all of this really carefully in relation to whatever the county council decide to do or not do, and the impact of the evening charge that we're putting on the central car parks. And it's very difficult to forecast what effect that might have, because people do still have a choice. They can park in a park and walk car park for free, So they might not choose to use the central car park. So we may not generate any income from this at all. We don't know. So we're going to review the whole arrangement very closely, and we've got some interim arrangements in place to make sure that the effects are ameliorated as much as possible.
Yeah, I think it's important to say that we are taking an incremental approach to this, where we're making relatively small changes, monitoring the impact they have. But clearly it is designed to be in line with the Winchester Movement Strategy, which is our joint approach with the county to how we manage traffic in Winchester. I think there's a general recognition that one of the biggest dangers for traffic in Winchester is actually congestion. So it's too many people trying to come through the town at particular points in time, and the more we can encourage people to stay on the edge, the more we can help with that. Can you confirm, Mr. Hickman, that we can make minor changes to residents' parking concessions without the need to come back for further decision days?
Yes, we can make operational decisions within the context of the scheme, as long as they're not permanent. So we can make interim arrangements. If they then become permanent, we would have to come back for a decision. Yeah.
Right, so we will be able to take fairly quick decisions on the basis of what county introduce. I think one of the things that's very important is that we are expecting them to move to virtual permits, where the permit is connected to your car, rather than you having a paper permit that you can put in the window. Clearly, without access to county systems, we will no longer know who has a parking permit or not. And that's certainly what they've done in other places. Did you have any further questions?
Thank you. Yes, I did. You said you'll be monitoring this carefully. Do you have any numbers then that support any of this in terms of, you know, is it 1 or 1,000 cars that are left in car parks overnight? I just have no concept of what the impact and how much use it has. That was my point really about, you know, are we looking carefully at what the impact is on businesses? Thank you.
Certainly, we do have some data on evening charges, on evening parking rather, Mr. Williams.
Yes, so before doing this, to try to answer that question, we did ask our civil enforcement officers to go out early in the morning and late at night to see how many people with permits were parking in the central car parks and making use of the concessions which are currently in place. And there were, at any one point, there was probably less than 75 people using them. And that's part of what we have developed here in terms of this set of systems are ones that continue to support the people who use them. So a number were in Chesil car park, for example. We're not. So thank you. So the number of people likely to be affected is very small. And as Councillor Lerney said, if we do, we are going to monitor this, and if we do come across operational issues where a particular street is affected by this, we will have the ability to for operational reasons introduce transitional arrangements in those areas should we need to.
Thank you, Councillor Bolton. So moving back to the paper and the recommendations, I think the annual look at tariffs is straightforward. But I think the link to the parking and access strategy is key, because this is not a financial issue, but it's around using tariffs to drive behaviour, you know, both keeping our town centres vibrant, and in that I include the market towns, not just Winchester City itself, while we do promote those wider environmental aims that we have. The move to Sunday bank holiday and evening charges in Winchester City Centre car parks was agreed as part of the general fund budget, and that is in line with the incremental approach we've been taking to these changes. The proposed evening charge has been kept low and usage will be monitored. I think it's very important to emphasise that this is only in the central car parks, with free parking on Sundays and evenings available just a couple of minutes walk away from the centre. And this is all in line with the movement strategy. A strategy which we work on with the County Council, which seeks to encourage active travel and edge of town and park and ride parking, reducing congestion and improving air quality in the heart of the city. The City Council has started work with the County Council on bringing on-street restrictions in line with our car park charging periods, but we do recognise that until that is in place, residents may find it harder to park on Sundays, and we will be giving residents in the most heavily affected areas an additional concession to allow parking in our car parks while the new TRO is in process. We do carry on with our commitment to working with the County Council on parking arrangements in the district. It is slightly disappointing that with only a few months to go, we are no further forward in understanding who will qualify for permits, how many may be issued, or what concessions might be made in County Council car parks when the County Council take back control of that on-street residents parking scheme. It's clear that we as a city are not going to be in a position in the long term to use our off-street car parks to compensate for all the impacts that might be felt by residents in the town of changes. And it wouldn't be right to make the wider district taxpayer bear a consequential financial burden. So I think the off-peak season ticket proposed will not only assist residents, but those who live outside and work in the city on evenings and weekends. So in the light of what's been said and those thoughts, I'm happy to agree to all the recommendations en bloc. So that is 1, that all tariffs are reviewed on a regular annual basis to ensure that they support the objectives of the parking and access strategy. 2, that from July 2023, an overnight charge equivalent to the 2-hour daily parking rate is introduced for parking after 7 p.m. and prior to 8 a.m. in central car parks only. 3, that an off-peak season ticket in the park and walk car parks is introduced from October 2023. 4, that concessions to residents will continue for existing resident parking holders until their City Council permits expire and be reviewed in the light of County Council decisions on the operation of their on-street scheme. And 5, that the City Council continues working with the County Council to achieve a coherent system of parking tariffs and concessions, supporting the needs of residents, people who work in the city and visitors, with transitional arrangements in place in the interim. So I will now sign off this decision when I can find the right place. Right, and with that, I close the meeting. So thank you very much, everybody.